create new positions. But all right, Kaitlyn, your stuff. So standing jump, what we're looking at here is 3 different positions. One is going to be the position your body is in when your arms are in full backswing or full counter movement, okay? And when we're in full counter movement here, so the arms are pretty parallel. So like this position here of the arms makes sense, like why your arms come up to parallel to the floor, because you can see that you're not really, there's not much of a crouch going on here, right? We're very tall, we're not flexed a ton. And this is similar to, like, I jumped very similar to this from the standing position, because you're a little bit more of what's called a reactive jumper, which means your body uses like more of like an elastic form of energy versus like just straight power, okay? The second position we look at is where the arms are parallel to the side or the torso. Okay, so that's like from here in that loading position, and then second position would be as you're starting to extend where the arms fit beside the torso. And then I take a look. Now I'm not super interested in what the numbers say. This just allows me to take a look. I look at shapes. I look at kind of like the body as a bit of like an art project. Okay, that's how my brain works, and that's how I'm able to coach. Some people like numbers. I'm not a huge numbers guy. And then the third position is at the point of what we call toe off, when the toes start to release, and we take a look at is like the angle at which your body is leaving the ground. Okay, so this picture kind of shows me that we need to, like for you, the likelihood is like very strong hamstrings, strong backside of your body, but glutes, like your butt muscles, are probably a little bit underdeveloped in terms of your ability to produce power from like a really low position. Okay, that's not to be said that like if your glutes are weak, you can't get low. It's just an indication to me that the likelihood is if we kind of prioritize with you, like doing some glute strengthening stuff, that you'll be able to get a little bit lower, and then just patterning and learning how to actually load your body there. Okay, so the one thing that's kind of the biggest glaring issue for a standing jump for testing is what's happening with your head and neck position here. So you're kind of going and the head is like this, it's cranked back, okay? And I'm just gonna kind of do a brief, really quick, like science lesson, but not super sciencey. Our spine, we have 3 chunks of our spine: cervical, upper, thoracic, middle, lumbar, lower. Okay, your cervical spine, and kind of all through your spine, you have nerves that like run through the bones, right? You've seen a spine, right? They move like this. Well, right where your head goes like this and cranks back, there's these nerve roots or bundles that go through there that supply tons of power to your shoulders. And your shoulders are attached to your arms, and your arms are responsible for a ton of power with jumping. So if we took, let's say, a garden hose outside, okay, and I've got water coming out of the end, and I bent the garden hose, what happens to the water out the end? Stops, or it just gets really, really weak. So if we have our garden hose or our nerve bundles, our garden hose, and we pinch them, what happens to the energy that's going through those nerves? Weaker. Right? Okay, so that's kind of what's happening here. Cranking the head back, although you're able to kind of see where you're touching, we can accomplish that by like lining ourselves up, right? We know where we are, it's still there. I don't have to look at it. What I can do is load the jump, and then on takeoff, I can then allow my eyes to go up so I can sight it as I leave the ground. It's really kind of common with like playing on the net too with volleyball, is you gotta know where the ball is. But if you're sighting, especially on a block, if you're cranked here on the block the whole time, you're gonna take away from a lot of this energy, so you can actually sight, square up the head a little bit, use your eyes versus using your head. So we use periphery or peripheral vision, right? I'm sure you've heard of that as well. So that's for you is kind of from a stationary perspective, is what we're gonna really work on, is kind of getting you out of the habit of cranking the head and learning how to load your jump a little bit more efficiently, okay? All right, Hailey. You can see the difference right away in like how you load differently, right? You load very low and with a heavy amount of what's called flexion, right? Flexion is like closing a joint, extension is opening a joint. So you flex at the hip pretty aggressively, and there's your arms at backswing. Your head is fairly neutral, which is a pretty good thing. And from there, there's our second picture, which is where the arms are beside the body. We're still relatively what we call collapsed, but the angle is starting to open, right, which is normal, hip extension, and the knee is starting to open a bit as well. And on takeoff, we have a very similar takeoff angle. What I'm seeing here is, if you look at your left leg, and I think I actually isolated this picture back, and I'll show you what I'm looking at. Your left leg is losing a little bit of, there it is. Okay. You can't see from this angle, but I can tell based on where your foot in relation to your knee is when you're about to jump, your left side is collapsing in, which is okay to a degree, but it kind of signals to me that there could be some need for bringing up the strength of your glutes as well to support your leg bones. The leg bones will fall in if the hips and the butt is not strong enough to keep them forced out, okay? So that's gonna fall a little bit on some of the drills we're gonna do today, but it's also gonna fall on the work that you're doing with, I can't remember her name, your like strength or your conditioning coach. Okay, so I think she doesn't have you doing much like any type of like weight training or anything yet, but that is gonna be like, it should be in your near future. You should start getting into learning how to lift and move weights because that's gonna progress your strength. It's not gonna make you big and bulky, it's just gonna progress your strength. Okay, so I can put stuff together and I'm sure you can share that with her as well. Okay, so for you, it's going to be both of you from a video perspective. It is going to be learning how to load a standing jump, which means how to lower quicker, more aggressively. And I'll tell you why you're going to load more aggressively. Your muscles work on what's called a stretch reflex. So if your arm, let me take your arm. If we like shot your arm out as fast as you could, if your muscles didn't have a reflex, what would happen at the elbow? If you just threw your arm really fast, what do you think would happen here?
It could pop.
It could pop, right? You get a lot of pain here. So what your muscles do, especially this one here in this instance, is when you lengthen it really fast, it hits a point where this muscle stretches and lengthens, and then it recoils because it wants to protect this muscle. So it goes boop, and it'll pull it back. Okay, so with your legs and your body, when we load the jump, we're stretching a lot of muscles like an elastic, right? And we stretch those muscles like an elastic. If our body didn't have a reflex, the elastic would snap. That wasn't a very effective snap, too sweaty. But they stretch. So when you load a jump, the faster, more aggressive you load that jump, the sharper and more aggressive the reflex is that will lift you off the ground. Okay, so for our retesting tomorrow, we're gonna be learning how to load the jump quicker to be able to explode off the ground higher and faster. Okay, so that's just a really quick lesson on that standing stuff. Now we can get into what I looked at with your full approach stuff. And this is where like, there's a lot happening, right? A lot of movement, and you guys both jump very differently from each other, which is really cool. So we'll start here again. I look for in our full approach jump, I'm taking kind of 4 photos. First photo is going to be the position. So if you see those little blue kind of scribble on your hips and butt area, that's what we call your center of mass. That's where like your body will carry the majority of its weight. For females, it's typically here. For males, it's a little bit higher up in the body. A high jumper, someone that can jump high off the ground, is someone that is able to keep their center of mass behind their plant foot. Okay, and I'm going to go over these points of performance so you have a little bit more understanding what they mean. As long as possible to be able to absorb and create power before applying your very last step, right? So if we go into our full jump, before we jump, this leg is our plant leg. We try to keep our center of mass behind this foot until we apply this block so that when you're driving, we have this nice long line we call line of action that goes up. If I'm forward and pushing, where's my angle going to be when I take off?
Yeah.
Forward. And you're going to watch this on both of your jumps. We're lacking a little bit of that sharp angle at takeoff. So good position behind the foot, okay? I like that position behind the foot. What happens pretty quickly with that is your last step, which is your block foot. Block means break. Remember that. Block means breaks. Your block foot is coming down what we call a little bit too fast. It's rushed. And when you rush, and you can hear it. Remember when you're jumping, or can you hear when you jump, it's like, and you hear that little squeak? That shows me that that block is coming down a little bit too quick. And you can see how close it is to your other foot. If we get that block down too fast, all that speed you created is gonna get blown through takeoff. You're just gonna fly right through your feet. And that's what happens. See, this angle that you're taking off on is kind of shallow. Okay, so with you, we're gonna be cleaning up a little bit where that block hits, so when you take off, you go up. Okay, you go up. All right, miss, here we go. So we have foot. Now, you have a different position. Let's take a look here. Taller, a little bit more forward, okay? Not bad to be forward, but if you don't have the strength to recover, means bring that body from forward to tall fast, what happens is it brings all your momentum forward and you do the same thing, you blow through your takeoff. So we get this, and you do a really good job of applying your block leg, which is that last contact, out in front of your body. But look at this dramatic, see these angles here?
Yeah.
That's not terrible, but this leg, this right leg, which is your plant leg, if we were to put this and show you what this looked like, right? We have that block in front, and then we have, this is kind of the position we're in right now, where that leg is collapsed. It's rotated inward. This can get troublesome for your knee, okay? And look at where your tape is right now, okay? I don't know if the camera can see that, but there's just a little bit of tape in the area where we're exposing a lot of that, what we call excessive internal rotation, where the leg bone rotates in toward the body. Okay, so we want to, this is a nice position, but that leg, instead of having that leg here, we want to have that leg out so that it's a straight, strong line, and you use this muscle. And I said before, what part of the body do we need a little bit of work on? Glutes, butt strength. So we train, and I tell oh, what up with that ghost over there? I tell my athletes all the time, we train glutes for 2 reasons. 1, for the gains, 2, for the genes. Just saying. Okay, we gotta train it for the genes too. We all know that. So we're gonna find, especially as we warm up, we're gonna get some of the muscle tissue, like the muscle fibers, to warm up so that they're kind of used to already working. And that's the one area I saw with your guys' warm-up yesterday, was it was a really good warm-up to get your blood pumping, like your heart rate up, but it didn't have elements of what we call priming. Priming is like, we want to make sure the muscles that we're really going to use are sensitive, like they're punchy and poppy. Okay, you kind of did a warm-up that had them a little bit slower moving, so when you hit like an explosive jump, your muscles aren't ready to fire fast. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Cool. So I'm going to show you a whole bunch of really cool like warm-up things to get your body firing on all cylinders, so you're like a battery on full charge. And then lastly, you have a really good what's called turn stance to your foot, which means that you know how to utilize the angles of your feet to a degree in order to create extra power. If we have our feet straight, which is yours are a little straighter, and that's super, super common, especially in younger female volleyball players, because you're taught that way, to like approach straight, and take off. But what happens is our feet, and I can show you with my awesome new shoes, how everything moves to the toe. If we have our feet straight and we plant, where does our body momentum want to go? Forward. And the only way we're going to go up is if we create a break this way from our speed. So we go up. So we're going to get you to learn how to kind of plant your feet on a little bit more of an angle, and it creates more surface area of your foot, right? More surface area sideways will create a harder, sharper break. So you see all these little like nuances, we call them small little subtle details. We clean them up, you guys will be flying. I'm telling you right.
For hitters, like when you're sideways, it's easier for you to
rotate. So with beach it's a little different, right? Because with beach, you're a lot of times doing what's called galloping into your stride, which means your takeoff is less like horizontal and more down into the ground. Okay, and we're gonna go over some really cool stuff to help you jump out of the sand higher too, but it's all about how fast and hard you can compress the sand, because sand is loose. Mm-hmm. You wanna turn the sand into floor. The only way you can turn sand into floor is by crushing it and smashing it down as hard and fast as possible. Okay, so you compress the sand. So we'll get you there too. And then the point we look at here with yours is the center of mass. So there's your center of mass. We talk about keeping that behind that as long as possible. Where is it right now? It's in front, which means that your momentum is already onto the last step. We don't want that to be our primary power source. We want it to be our block equals break. Okay, so what's happened is now your center of mass transitions more into this foot, and there's your center of mass now. It's splitting your stance. It's in between your feet versus over top of that foot. And when you toe off, that foot is coming off the ground first. That's your plant foot. So in the situation where we go to jump and we come through our takeoff, if we're loaded properly for maximum height, the foot that comes off the ground first, just slightly first, will actually be our block, and this one will continue to source power and drive. But you're kind of forward, taking off, that foot leaves the ground, and now all my momentum is going forward, okay? So it's just really a matter of teaching you some drills in order to get your body in the right position at the right time. And then it cleans a lot of stuff up for you. All right, before we go out and get on the warm-up, I want to just go over the names of the little points I've talked about. Plant, block, and the last word we're going to talk about is what's called penultimate. Penultimate is a long, confusing word that just means second last. Okay? So when I love that we have like all this space here too. So when we jump, we utilize, especially for your approach, right? We utilize, volleyball is usually 3, sometimes 4-step approach. Beach, usually 2, right? Nice push and then you take off the ground. But that second last stride, no matter if you're doing a 3, 4, or 2-step approach, is gonna be what we call our penultimate stride. So for me to kind of walk through this, I jump the same way as you guys, right foot, then left foot, okay? So we walk here, that stride, that push, that long step is called our penultimate stride, okay? Penultimate stride is responsible for 2 things. One is speed, acceleration. Acceleration equals power, power equals bounce. And 2 is slightly lowering your center of mass. Where's your guys' center of mass? Do you remember? Right around the hips. We lower the center of mass through that stride so that you load up the plant leg. Plant leg is the right leg. This is our plant. That's our block. Block, break, block. You can use it. Honestly, I love when people use the word break because that's what it's supposed to be, okay? So we're gonna go through some drills today to help reinforce penultimate, plant, block, and then where your center of mass is in relation to your feet. And we'll do it in a way that's not like dry and boring like a school lesson, but I figure we just gotta go over some stuff, okay? Do we have any questions about these, like the stuff I went over with you this far? No? Awesome, let's go outside.